The world is changing. It's changing fast. It's changing rapidly. And if you're a leader, you're not trying to stop that change. You're acknowledging it. You're embracing it on some level. You're trying to make decisions that will help stabilize your organization, but you don't try to stop the change. Now, I have seen many managers try to mitigate change, try to stop the change, try to keep the change from happening. Because in a manager's world, everything staying the same all the time helps them to be more successful. And so it's very understandable. But if you're a leader, and there's a profound difference between leadership and management, which is not the subject of this video, but worth doing a video on later. A manager may try to stop the change because they're trying to control the workflow and the processes, but a manager or a leader who is a visionary, who is there to help people develop personally, professionally, realize a higher vision, they're not going to try to stop the change. They're going to try and figure out a way to navigate through the change in a way that everyone is successful. In our world today, we have remote work, we have hybrid work, we have rapid innovation. There's global crises all the time, everywhere. That's not going away. And so for modern organizations, great leadership, epic leadership isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. It's the heartbeat of any organization that's going to truly thrive. So here's the problem. The problem really lies in that many companies are struggling to develop leaders who can navigate this complexity that we're talking about. That results in disengaged teams, high turnover, and missed opportunities. Let's be totally honest. When it comes to moving people into leadership, what we generally do is we identify our high performers. We look at those who are doing their jobs really exceptionally well, and we assume because they can do the job well, that they can lead others to do the job just as well. And so that we put them in a position of leadership. But the problem is that we have not prepared them to lead. They might be great at what they do, and very often are, but we haven't equipped them with any leadership skills. And so when we don't equip them for leadership skills, they begin to lead sometimes well, sometimes very poorly. Actually, most often they lead poorly because they haven't been given the skills they need to lead a team effectively. So we're going to uncover why leadership and leadership development are game changers. And I'll share actionable steps with you today to solve this challenge. So let's dive in. Once a ship named Horizon sat with a crew eager for adventure. The captain, we'll call her Lena, was a skilled navigator, but she was untrained in leadership. She knew the stars, but she did not know her people. As they were set out to sea, a storm hit. Lena barked orders, ignoring the crew's fears or their ideas, and panic began to spread throughout the entire ship. The sails tore because no one trusted her judgment, and the ship almost sank. But then a junior officer, Kai, who had been trained in leadership, stepped up. He rallied the crew, he listened to their insights, and he delegated tasks based on their strengths. Together, they patched the sails, they patched the ship, and they steered back through the storm and saved the ship and the entire crew. Now, Lena watched this. She observed this, and she learned from this, and she sought leadership training. She realized that her technical skills alone weren't enough to guide her team. But under her new approach, the Horizon thrived, becoming an absolute legend on the seas. So this story demonstrates how technical expertise without leadership skills can falter under pressure. But effective leadership, which encompasses listening, inspiring, and adapting, that translates chaos into success. It turns chaos into order, and it highlights the need for intentional leadership growth to navigate the challenges and unite our teams. So let's dive into this. We have a problem, and the problem's clear. Organizations are facing a leadership crisis. See, studies show that almost 21% of training budgets go to leadership development. And that's a broad view of organizations across industries. But many CEOs are very dissatisfied with programs that focus on technical skills rather than adaptive leadership. And most leadership development programs are focused on technical skills: how to have a conversation, how to do coaching, how to discipline your employees, how to fill out this form that's required, how to do this that's required. But adaptive leadership is completely different than all that. And this gap, it leaves companies struggling to retain talent. It leaves them struggling to execute strategies and adapt to challenges like remote work or a lot of the things we're facing now in the post-COVID realities of the workplace. So without effective leaders, employee engagement is going to drop. Profitability will suffer as a result of the turnover that happens, which is a result of the low employee engagement, and organizations begin to lose their competitive edge. Gallup research reveals that companies with high employee engagement see 21% higher profitability and 17% more productivity from their employees. But without leaders equipped to inspire and to adapt, these benefits will slip away. Now, we've all went through the pandemic. We are a few years outside of it, but it made this problem even more urgent. Leaders were thrust into crisis mode, and they needed skills like sense-making, technology enabling, and fostering employee well-being in remote settings. And most leaders were not equipped with those skills. A lot of the research highlights that traditional leadership development programs were not ready for the shift of that crisis. And whether it's COVID or some other crisis, because a crisis will come, most leadership is not equipped to deal with a crisis, which leaves organizations scrambling to adapt. So what's the solution? How do we solve the leadership crisis? Leadership development has evolved from assuming leaders are born as leaders to recognizing that leadership is a learnable skill. Anybody can be taught to lead. Now, whether they want to lead or not, that's a whole different topic, but anyone can be taught the skills of leadership. And to bridge the gap between what we have and where we want to go in terms of leadership, we need to rethink our approach. We need to reimagine how leadership and leadership development takes place. There are frameworks like constructive developmental theory, which I won't go into depth here, but they allow us to tailor programs to different stages of mental complexity and leadership ability, ensuring that everyone grows. There's a need to do what I call democratizing leadership development, which means instead of just focusing on your high potentials, your high performers, those people that are already displaying some leadership ability and saying, we're going to put them into the leadership development program because they already show promise. We need to take leadership principles and begin to teach them throughout our organization. Now, granted, your new employee fresh out of college or fresh out of high school, just starting the job, doesn't need the level that your vice president needs of leadership development. But we should be able to tailor leadership and begin teaching leadership to every single person from the newest hire to the most senior executive. The next, we need to customize and integrate adaptive skills. And this is because a one-size program doesn't work. there's so much research behind this to show and to prove that one size fits all leadership development programs simply don't work. We need to customize training to the industry we're in, because real estate needs different things from their leaders than, say, the construction side of real estate. And people at different career stages may have different needs. So there has to be some room in there to customize this to meet the needs not only of the organization, but of the individuals at the stage they're at. So we can incorporate adaptive skills like relationship building and innovation. And we can blend classroom learning, online training, and practical experience to both human and social capital. Step 3, we need to set clear objectives and measure impact. We need to define precise, measurable goals for the leadership development program. Clear objectives enhance participant understanding and the success of the program. We can use balanced assessments combining objective metrics and subjective feedback to track progress. And a good organizational psychologist can help you develop all of this. And then we need to celebrate success to boost morale. Every time someone in the leadership development program achieves a success, accomplishes a goal, reaches a milestone, we need to show recognition to drive engagement. And then step 4 is we need to foster a culture of lifelong learning. Great leaders never stop learning. So we need to encourage leaders to become lifelong learners through continuous education. Now, as an organization, maybe we provide those opportunities, but leaders also need to look to enhance their own lifelong learning by seeking out their own education. So the organization providing it is good. It should be done. It should be provided, but each leader also needs to seek extracurricular learning on their own. They need to do continuous education, reading, and they need to have a safe space to test their assumptions. That's critical to adaptive leadership, that we need to be able to, in real world situations, so in the workplace, as a leader, let's say I have an assumption that nothing's going to get done correctly unless I do it. I need to be able to test that assumption by maybe delegating an important project to someone else on my team and then observing whether it gets done well or not. That doesn't mean that it has to get done exactly the way I would do it. But if it gets done well and the outcome is what we want as an organization, then that would prove that my assumption that I have to control everything is not true, and then I can move on. By democratizing development, customizing programs, setting clear goals, and fostering lifetime learning, organizations can solve the leadership crisis. And what's the result? Engaged teams, higher profitability, and a future-ready workforce. We know that 99% of leaders report stronger communication skills, and 98% see better collaboration after effective leadership development programs. So it's time to invest in leadership development, not management development, but leadership development, not just for today, but to shape tomorrow. So if you're ready to transform your organization, visit royleadership.online for resources and to start building leaders who inspire, who adapt, and who succeed. And let's make leadership the heartbeat of your success.